going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here to another episode of the Just Ballin' podcast, and today I'm excited to react to basically the Ringer's top 25 players under the age of 25 in the NBA. So I'm currently workshopping my version of this list right now that you guys are going to get into a podcast in a couple of days. So I thought today would be a nice part one to that, and we're going to react to what the Ringer has. They're using 25 and younger. Sometimes I'll do top 25 players under 25, so I think I will maybe cut it off at 25, so you have to be 24 years old or younger to make my list. But I'm excited to react to this today. This is pretty much by a bunch of panelists over at the Ringer, and we're pretty much just going to dissect it. There's been a lot of talk and controversy in this list that you guys have maybe seen on Twitter or anything like that. So I am excited to react to this today. So what kind of shocked me pretty much about their rating scale. So they pretty much calculated a bunch of different things with all their panelists, and they were supposed to rank them on a 1 to 10 scale. So current performance, the current quality of the player's overall game. So you would think that alone, Luka Doncic, #1 guy, because he's still 25 years old. They have future performance, where the player's overall game will be in 5 years. That's why you'd maybe give a lot or an edge to an Anthony Edwards or Victor Wembanyama. Gets the people going. Charisma and marketability. Okay. Is this player appointment viewing? Would your niece or nephew want to buy their shoes? All right. Intangibles. I feel like that's just a Bill Simmons thing that he would mention. Intangibles. All of the qualities a team executive looks for in a player. Leadership, injury risk, history, reliability. Does this player get it? And foundational qualities. Can you build a franchise around the player's game? And how adaptable is it? All right. So, so the results are determined by the combined overall score and tabulated by Zaxxon Info are below. So in the words of Anthony Edwards, bring your ass. All right. So we start off with Jabari Smith Jr. Now, it's tough to kind of view if this is too high for Jabari Smith. Is this too low? I'm happy he made the list. He's got a overall score of 20.5. We'll see how that ranks up to some other guys. And I think Jabari Smith, as a franchise #1, it's not going to be there, but I think he's going to be someone that could be a nice complementary piece down the line. He's someone that can defend. He can probably be an offensive hub inside the post. He could space the floor a little bit. He's long, he's versatile, and he has a good ball handle for somebody of his size. And I think for Jabari Smith, the potential is still there, and him coming out of Auburn was more that it was going to be a 3 to 4 year project. He wasn't going to be as NBA ready as maybe Paulo Banchero or at times a Chad Holmgren has been in this league. So I'm cool with Jabari Smith being at 25. We can maybe figure out at the end who was snubbed outside of Jabari Smith. But yeah, all right, so that's the baseline. Jabari Smith here at 25. We'll see if I had to have the player at 24 ahead of him. And the player next up we have is Darius Garland. And I think if you're looking at their overall peaks, I think Garland would still be better than Jabari Smith. I mean, I think Jabari Smith also has the potential. I don't know, though, because it's such a weird variance for Jabari Smith over the course of his career, and that's what I'm going to project this out long term. And I don't know, because Jabari Smith could be someone that could space the floor, handle the rock, defend inside, defend on the perimeter, could be a rim runner, can just be someone that could operate at the pick and roll, pick and pop. Garland, though, was so highly looked at going into the 2024 season and had such a disappointing year. The contract's getting bigger. So I get the reasoning for having Garland low on this list. I still would put Garland ahead of Jabari Smith, and I think in my ranking, that will still happen because Garland will make it at 24 years old. There's a chance he's on a new team next year. There's a chance Cleveland decides to move him if they keep Donovan Mitchell. I don't know what's going to happen with the Cavs this offseason. I mean, that is so up in the air for what is really going to be kind of a part of that team going forward. Is it going to be Garland? Is it going to be Donovan Mitchell? And who's going to be that guy? So they have Garland at 24 and Jabari Smith at 25. All right, so we'll see who 23 is. Desmond Bane. All right, I'm a big Desmond Bane guy. And they have just missed the cut that we can kind of get into in a little bit, which is, that's going to be interesting. So Desmond Bane at 23. I would probably have Jabari Smith. I don't know, though, because Desmond Bane had such a weird year, and nobody really talked about Desmond Bane this year because he was injured. The Grizzlies were pretty much irrelevant for most of the year due to all the injuries they had. So you'd expect Desmond Bane to be more in the fold next year, and probably going to be better and more efficient as number 2, number 3, rather than trying to take the load of a number 1, in which I thought maybe he could have done this year, but that didn't really happen, unfortunately. So I think if you're looking at long-term potential, I still think I like Jabari Smith's ceiling over what Desmond Bane's ceiling is, because I think we're close to Bane's ceiling, even though he's a phenomenal shooter, and I'm excited to maybe watch him in the playoffs again, because I feel like I haven't really mentioned Desmond Bane's name in a while. So Garland, Bane, and Smith. I think I would put Garland still ahead of Bane. I don't know. I'm still high on Darius Garland. He's still just 24 years old. They had Herb Jones missing the cut. Off defense alone, Maybe he should have made it. Kobe White didn't make it. That's tough. I'm cool with Anthony Simons not making it because I do think he has a lower ceiling than some of these other guys. I'm just not the biggest Anthony Simons guy. Good player, don't get me wrong, but could also be a little bit of empty stats on a bad team. No Jaden McDaniels, no Jonathan Kuminga, no Michael Porter Jr., and no Tyler Hero making this list as well. So any of those guys I would put ahead of Jabari Smith in a top 25 under 25. Like Porter Jr. is better right now, but long term I still think I would take Jabari Smith. Kuminga, interesting, but I have no idea what's going on with him in Golden State and how they're going to optimize his potential. McDaniels, I mean, I think if it's McDaniels or Herb Jones, I may give the slight edge to McDaniels. Simons and Kobe White may be similar in their play styles as well. All right, maybe I don't hate these guys getting left off. I feel like Hero's a little underrated because Jalen Green comes in at number 22. And I think I'm fine with Hero over Green long term. Green showed so much potential over like a 4-week stretch this season. But the other kind of, I don't know, he probably played 20 games, whatever. So the other like 60 games, it was just kind of a head case. Inefficiencies. Lack of defensive ability, but you could see the potential that Jalen Green possesses in his game, and he's a true 3-level scorer, someone that can attack the rim, finish inside at an efficient level. He can work in isolation, he can work as a pick and roll ball handler, he can navigate ball screens. So I think Jalen Green's offensive game is still has a chance to be top 20 in the league, but are we ever going to see that? Are we ever going to see the shot selection be a little bit more viable? Are we going to be able to see him operate a half-court offense to an efficient level and to be a winning team? I mean, you could say he was the best player on a 41-41 team this year. I would probably still give the edge to Alperen Şengün. So Jalen Green comes in at 22. I would still have him in front of his partner in Jabari Smith Jr. I'm cool with him in front of Desmond Bane because what the potential could be. But Darius Garland, I think I would maybe have ahead of Jalen Green. I think obviously now is a popular time to hate on Darius Garland. So, hey, buy stock if you were invested into Garland preseason because I think he's going to be just fine next year, especially if he's in like San Antonio playing with Wemby. So next up at 21, we have Jalen Johnson. All right, I'm a big Jalen Johnson fan, but this seems kind of high. I don't know. Is Jalen Johnson that much better than Kuminga looking long term? I feel like they can be kind of similar. Jabari Smith Jr., I'm still high on. I mean, Jalen Johnson is from that 2021 draft class. We saw him break out this year. Someone that can space the floor, can rim run, super athletic, can work in the half-court set, can rebound well, and he's a fun player, don't get me wrong. And it was a pretty poor, I'm not going to say it was a disaster environment. It wasn't a Washington or a 2023 Rockets or a Pistons environment for Johnson this year, but it wasn't maybe a great environment. But I thought, yeah, we definitely got the most optimal season for Jalen Johnson in this first full year under Quinn Snyder. So I'm excited about what he can be long term. I think 21 is maybe just caught my eye a little bit, but the athleticism is there to really be a top guy in this league. Not a top 10 or 20 guy, but someone that could be an adjacent number 2 or number 3. LaMelo Ball at 20. I'm interested to see who they have in front of LaMelo Ball. All right, I'm taking LaMelo Ball over any of the guys we just mentioned. Like if you offered me 1 for 1, I have LaMelo Ball, and everybody we just mentioned, Jabari, Garland, Bane, Jalen Green or Jalen Johnson, I'm saying no. So if we're operating like that, then this is correct. If we went like Jalen Johnson and somebody offered me Jalen Green, would I say yes? That would be tough. Desmond Bane, I don't know, because Desmond Bane I think has his limitations defensively and is a number 1. Do I think Jalen Johnson could be number 1? I think it really depends on how his 3-point shot looks this year, because if they really find someone that could be a consistent 3-point shooter and works on his ball handling ability and can really be a top end guy for this Hawks team, yeah, Jalen Johnson could really elevate his stock and what he is throughout this league. So for now, LaMelo Ball at 20 seems good. I feel like the Ringer is going to hate on LaMelo Ball. So I'm someone that's also like, I think I like Brandon Miller as like the number 1 there. But I think we also have to slow down a little bit because LaMelo's offensive ability is still so good for someone that's 20. He's 22 years old. Like LaMelo Ball has accomplished so much more than Jalen Johnson, and they are the same age. So I think we maybe have to pump the brakes on the LaMelo Ball hate, but I get it. Maybe the immaturity things. Can he be a leader? Which they did have as a criteria. So you know what? Hey, maybe I get that then because that was a criteria point. So LaMelo Ball coming in at number 20. Number 19, Jaren Jackson Jr. LaMelo Ball is going to give you elite offense. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to give you elite defense. I think we didn't see the jump from Triple J that we would have liked with him not playing with Ja Morant. Now he's someone that definitely will benefit playing with Ja, but it hurt not seeing Triple J maybe be super efficient and someone that could take a step as a number one option. I thought the defense was still elite this year. There are still some rebounding concerns. Someone that of his size is averaging under 6 rebounds a night isn't really great, and we saw that on display for Team USA in the FIBA World Cup last year. But someone that's going to be an all defensive caliber player. I think if I had LaMelo Ball and you offered me Triple J, I mean, with this Hornets team now, it's interesting with Brandon Miller in the fold, but I feel like I'd still take LaMelo Ball. I still feel like I would, just off the potential, as I think LaMelo Ball could be a number one on a really good team if he buys in defensively, because this dude is super athletic. He's super long. And he has the athleticism to be an elite defender and the shooting ability to be an elite offensive guy and a 3-level scorer in this league and be one of the top facilitators. He can get rebounds. He can kind of do it all, but it's really kind of like the immaturity thing. I think they're going to talk about the reason for doubt. Can he be a winning player, which we haven't really seen? And he's also been injury prone. I still think I would probably put LaMelo Ball ahead of Triple J, and that's probably what I would do. Franz Wagner at 18. Ooh, all right. I'm going to go back to the LaMelo Ball thing at 20. I still think I'm going to take LaMelo Ball. There are concerns with Franz's shot, but he's just 22 years old. I think he's going to be fine long term. I think I would take Triple J ahead of Franz as well, just because of the versatility that Triple J can give me as my 5, as my 4, someone that can play an elite defense and can space the 4. Like, Triple J is a better scorer than Franz, but I feel like Franz is a better shot creator and probably a better playmaker as well as Triple J as well. So I think that's an interesting debate, Franz or Triple J, but I still feel like I'm going to take LaMelo Ball over both of them. I feel like Franz will be fine, and we shouldn't really panic and put too much stock into his poor shooting season. I think he'll be fine next year. Next up at 17, Brandon Miller. So Brandon Miller 3 spots ahead of LaMelo Ball, given age. What we saw from Miller this year as someone that can operate in the half court, has a great pull-up jumper, mid-range game. He can knock down threes. He can score inside. Someone I think I would probably take ahead of Franz Wagner if I'm starting a team and I have Brandon Miller and you offered me Franz for him. I'm keeping Brandon Miller. If I have Brandon Miller and you offered me Triple J, I'm keeping Brandon Miller. It would be interesting for LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, but hey, they're teammates, and I think that's something that's supposed to be optimistic for Charlotte, and it looks like they finally hit on a number 2 overall pick. I mean, they had one in 2012. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist didn't work out. Constant bust after bust with Noah Vonleh and Frank Kaminsky, and Malik Monk for them was a bust. So, like, they've had a lot of bad picks before, and just taking Miles Bridges over Shea. So I think Brandon Miller is going to be just like a beacon of hope for them, and he's going to be someone that they can operate as a number 1 or number 2. And it seems like I think Charlotte could operate with Miller and LaMelo as a number 1 too. It's just like, will LaMelo mature in this league? And I mean, I would take LaMelo over Triple J and Franz. I've been a big proponent of Brandon Miller over LaMelo, so I would be fine if they were maybe 1 spot apart. 15, tied for 15, Evan Mobley. All right. Triple J is a better defender than Evan Mobley right now, but this is obviously a projection game as well. But they are taking into account like current play. I guess you're still hoping we could see Evan Mobley be a 20-plus point per game scorer, develop somewhat of a mid-range jumper, maybe space the floor. But this dude is an elite defender. He's a good rebounder, a better rebounder than Triple J, and he's a few years younger. So I can get that for sure with Evan Mobley being above Triple J, but I think if you're still looking at the potential, that could be a number 1 option, which I feel like a lot gets into account here in the top 25 under 25. I'm taking LaMelo and Brandon Miller over Evan Mobley. I am. I think Evan Mobley's offensive game will be fine, and I think he could be an elite defensive player, but someone that's going to anchor me as my top guy, and that could be a 1A. I still have hope in LaMelo, and I believe a lot in Brandon Miller. So I think I would have them ranked ahead of Evan Mobley, but I'm fine with Evan Mobley because what you think he could be offensively ahead of Triple J. And definitely, I think still ahead of Franz Wagner just because he's an elite defender already. And you still hope that there's that offensive potential when they probably move on from Jared Allen and we see him operate without, like with him at the 5 and the game spaced out for him, right? And it's not like the paint is clogged for him offensively. So next up, we have Trae Young at 15. All right, so they are not a fan of kind of these archetypes. They feel like Trae Young could have his similarities to LaMelo Ball, someone that's going to be a ball-dominant guard, hasn't really won too much. But Trae, like his numbers over the course of his career have been elite. He's someone that puts up 28 and 8, 28 and 10 consistently. The shot has been inconsistent. He's been a good 3-point shooter at times, poor some other times, and when he's poor, he's shooting you out of games because he's going to take 8 to 10 threes a night, it seems like. The defense is still bad, but it was better last year over any other year of his career. So you'd like to see that improvement from Trey. He hasn't really worked out too well alongside of DeJounte Murray, but I feel like Trae Young, I think he's low here. He's 25 years old, so I guess we're closer to Trey's ceiling than some of the other guys behind him. I'm curious to see who's ahead of Trae Young specifically, but I think this feels low for Trey, and I think it's, if you ask me, Lamelo or Trey, Lamelo has way higher defensive potential still in his career, but we've seen Trey carry this team to a conference finals appearance, and I know they've been taking a step back after this, and he may not even be an Atlanta Hawk next year. I feel like this is low for Trey. I don't think I'm going to have him in my top 25 under 25 because he's 25 years old. He's getting a little bit older in this league, which is crazy because I was at the draft when he was selected at the Barclays Center in 2018. Feels low. We'll see who's ahead of him. 14, Cade Cunningham. Okay. I'm okay with this. I'm a big Cade fan. I think if there was a 2021 redraft today, I'm still taking Cade over Şengün, Mobley, Franz, Kuminga, Jaylen Green. A lot of 2021 draft guys from this in this video or in this ranking. But yeah, I'm still a Cade guy. Cade was in one of the worst environments last year. He barely played in his sophomore year. I'm excited to see him hopefully play with a much better roster this year. Who's taking the load off Cade's back? It wasn't Jaden Ivey last year. At times, he was trying to be Bojan Bogdanovic, but at this point in Bojan's career, that's not the guy for you. So you hope that they add somebody this offseason that could do that for Cade. Maybe that's a Dalton Connect. Maybe that's a DeMar DeRozan. Maybe it's a Tobias Harris, right? I know some of those options aren't great, but Cade has been asked to do way too much. I think he's got higher defensive upside than some of these other guards we've talked about. I think he will buy in more than Lamelo, and I think he's better defensively than Trae Young. He's a phenomenal playmaker. He's becoming a good shooter, something that he struggled at times at Oklahoma State in the early part of his career in his rookie season. And I think Cade can be a 3-level scorer, a good defender, and could be a 1A in this league. I do. And I'm excited to see Cade develop. He's been kind of under, not in the spotlight in Detroit, and I think we got to look at Cade differently, because this Detroit team has been so bad, but it's not because of Cade, and I would still take him. If Cade, or if this team invests a lot, say they end up with DeRozan or somebody this offseason, and they are still one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference, then we can have a serious discussion about Cade as a leader. But for now, I still have a lot of stock into Cade long term, and I'm okay with him being 14. I'm higher on Cade than some other people for sure. So they have category leaders. Luka Doncic is the highest in current performance, just edging out Shea. Okay. Future performance, Wemby's got the highest. Gets the people going, Anthony Edwards. They question if he's the next MJ. I think this came up before the Western Conference Finals. Intangibles, Wemby is the highest, and foundational qualities, Wemby is the highest. All right, so they're going to have Wemby very high. Next up at number 13, Scotty Barnes. All right, wow, I should have mentioned him when I was talking about guys in the 21 class. I apologize. I disagree. I would have a couple other guys ahead of Scotty Barnes, and I feel like I'm going to sound like a Scotty Barnes hater, in which I'm not, but I do think there's a ceiling on Scotty Barnes as a true leader. And I still think the potential alone from Trey, Lamelo, Cade, maybe even Brandon Miller, as a number one in this league is higher than Scotty Barnes. I do worry about Scotty Barnes' inefficiencies at times. There was concerns about his shot at Florida State, and he's done a hell of a job developing a shot. So I want to give a props to Scotty. He's a better defender than a lot of the guys we talked about, and he's an overall great player. He's someone that can rebound, pass, score inside. Worry about the shot creating a little bit, but he's still someone that's just 22 years old, and he's going to be a very good player in this league. But there's some other guys. I would still take Cade ahead of Scotty Barnes because I do think he can lead this team as the number one, and that's really what this list I think can come down to for sure. And I think Scotty Barnes would be a phenomenal 2 or 3 in this league, but I doubt about him as a number 1. I don't think the Raptors are going to be great next year unless they add a big name this offseason. So I disagree with this. I do. And that may be a hot take. I do not want to sound like a Scotty Barnes hater because I do enjoy watching Scotty Barnes play basketball, but I don't think I would put him ahead of some of the other guys that were listed behind him. But that's probably a hot take from me. So next up at number 12, we have Alperen Şengün. I guess obviously current impact can play a role into this, but if you ask me, guys from the 21 class still taking Cade above them, there's a debate. If you had to ask me Şengün or Scotty, I mean, what I'm getting defensively from Scotty, they're similar playmakers, but you're getting that offensive hub in the post from Şengün, which I think could be very valuable in this league. And we've seen guys like Domantas Sabonis and obviously Nikola Jokic be so valuable with that style of play. I would probably slightly give Şengün the edge over Scotty Barnes. And they had Mobley tied at 15, with Trae Young. So we have 3 straight 2021 draft class guys, with Cade at 14, Barnes at 13, and Şengün at 12. I mean, I would love to know your rankings if you're on YouTube, or if you want to go to the Q&A section on Spotify, or let me know on Twitter. How would you rank Şengün, Cade, and Evan Mobley? Or excuse me, Şengün, Cade, and Scotty Barnes. You can even throw Evan Mobley in that as well. I would go Cade 1. I think I'd still go Scotty over Şengün, but that's tough, man, because Şengün was great this year, and you really can't go wrong. Number 10, Ja Morant, tied for number 10. This seems low, but we got to see who's ahead of him. I mean, I may just not be, because I'm sure, like, obviously you have guys like Paulo. J-Dub over Ja Morant is interesting, but we'll get to that. So Ja, 24 years old, a little bit older, but obviously he wasn't in the spotlight this past season, and when he was, it wasn't maybe for a good reason. He was suspended, then he had season-ending shoulder surgery. But Ja Morant is still one of the best point guards in this league. He's still someone that could be a number one option on a championship team, in my opinion. There are some outside shot question marks. There maybe are some health concern question marks because Ja has missed a decent amount of time in his career so far. But he's someone that can be a 3-level, or he could finish at the rim better than mostly everybody in this league, maybe not named Kyrie Irving. He's someone that can facilitate as well as anyone else from the point guard position. He's one of the best guys in transition. He's one of the best guys at attacking the rim, working the pick and roll, and he's someone that's made Desmond Bane and Triple J a lot better, who made this top 25 list. So this seems kind of low for Ja Morant at 24 years old. If you want to take into account what he could be as a leader, as a franchise guy, those are fine, and I can agree with those too, because there have been the off-the-court issues for Ja, and we can play into those, and we can take those into consideration, but I think Ja's going to be fine going forward, so 10 seems kind of low. At number 9, or excuse me, tied with 10, we have Zion Williamson. So Ja and Zion are tied. This is the first time in every year since they've been into the league since 2019 that Zion had a better year than Ja, because Zion stayed healthy. He played north of 65 games. He helped lead the Pelicans, I guess lead you could say, to an 8th spot in the Western Conference. But the big thing that he was healthy for sure, and Ja Morant wasn't for the first time in their careers. I would still take Ja over Zion because I do think Zion has a ceiling on what he could be as a player. He's not going to space the floor. There are the health concerns, which I'm going to take into consideration. And Zion is phenomenal. He's 23 years old, but I do worry about his a chance to lead a team for sure, and what he is as a player, where he is on the floor, because he can't space the floor. So you need someone that can space the floor at the 5. So that's going to be tough to kind of add around Zion Williamson, because there's not a lot of great floor spacers that could also be good defensively. I don't think he's he's obviously athletic enough, but it's a weird spot for him at the 3 defensively, because he's quick, but I feel like he can really get blown by other guys. So I would put Ja at, like, if it came down to it, I would put Ja at 9, Zion at 10. I don't really think there's a reason for them to be tied, but Zion there is fine. Paulo at 9. Whoa, that seems low. Do they have J-Dub ahead of Paulo Banchero? Whoa! All right. Well, that's going to be interesting if so. Unless they don't have J-Dub in the top 25. But Paulo Banchero, I think, needs to be higher than 9. We'll see who else is ranked in this list. But someone that just led the Magic to a 7-game series against a much better Cavs team. Someone that played well in the playoffs. Someone that has been on Team USA in the FIBA World Cup last year. He was an all-star caliber player this year. 22.5 points, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists. Bought in on the defensive end of the floor. His shot improved so much from year 1 to year 2. I don't know how Paulo is 9, and he's just 21 years old. This seems kind of low for Paulo Banchero's ranking, and I disagree with this for sure. I'm taking Paulo over Zion for sure. I mean, I'm still high on Ja Morant, but yeah, I'm taking Paulo over everybody we just mentioned. And at number 8, they have J-Dub. All right, I disagree. And if Chet's going to be higher as well, what are we doing? Why is J-Dub and Chet, who are both great young players, and I am cool having all the hype in the world on them, I don't agree. I don't agree with this at all. I think Ja Morant should be higher than J-Dub. I'm fine with J-Dub being over Zion Williamson, but J-Dub's already 23 years old. Ja's 1 year older than J-Dub, and he's accomplished so much more in this league, and I still think, I don't know if J-Dub could be a number 1 on a championship team. I don't think he can be. But there's a chance he could be for sure, because he's a two-way guy. He doesn't turn the ball over. He does kind of everything well. He's efficient. He could pass. He can rebound. He could score inside, score on the perimeter. I love J-Dub's game. I just think if we're looking at somebody long-term, and even right now, Paulo Banchero should be higher than J-Dub. If you swap them this year, there's a really good chance that the Thunder are playing in the finals and the Magic don't even make the playoffs. And that's not to discount J-Dub's game whatsoever. I just think leading this team, I I disagree with that. I do. I think Paulo should be ranked ahead of J-Dub, and they have Chet Holmgren at 7. I would go Paulo 7. I kind of like J-Dub more than Chet long term, but Chet's defensive ability and what he could do for you as a rim protector, and he's going to get stronger in this league. I do think Chet would be 8 and J-Dub 9, so I disagree with this. I think they got it all wrong. I would go Paulo 7, Chet 8, J-Dub 9, but they went Paulo 9, J-Dub 8, Chet 7. You ask any redraft, they would go Chet goes to Orlando, Chet goes to Orlando, J-Dub goes to OKC, Paulo goes to Houston. Come on, man. We got to disagree with that. What are we doing? I disagree with that wholeheartedly. You put Paulo with Shea, I think they win the finals this year, right? I think at least they go to the finals or they beat Dallas. Chet, obviously, is such an elite rim protector, and he can space the floor, and he's a unicorn out there. And I think I have to appreciate more what he does that not many other players in this league can do. Like, you add in Wemby, you add in Miles Turner, you add in maybe Embiid and Jokic. There's not many guys that could do what Chet can do on both ends of the floor. And, like, he's a better defender than Nikola Jokic. He's a better offensive player than Bam Adebayo, I think, right now, just because of his floor spacing ability. Not as good as a ball handler, and he needs to get stronger in this league. But 7, ahead of Paulo, 2 spots, is a little weird. Maxey at 6. All right, I'm a big fan of Maxey, so let me figure this out. Do I like Maxey ahead of J-Dub? Yes. Do I like Maxey ahead of Chet? I think so. Maxey ahead of Ja and Paulo is tough to justify. We're looking at the potential here. Lamelo, Maxey ahead of Lamelo is fine. Maxey ahead of Trey, that's a debate, but they're 10 spots apart from each other, so I kind of disagree with that. I'm a big Maxey fan. 6 seems a little high. I would just have Paulo and Ja ahead of Maxey, but if you want to have Maxey ahead of Ja, that's fine. I just think Paulo should be ahead of Maxey. I mean, Maxey's super elite as a 3-level scorer in this league. He gets score inside. He's got one of the nicest right-hand layups in this game. I feel like he could score it from like 5 feet out, 6, 7 feet out, and he could flick it up and it's going to be good. He's someone that's a lead shooter. We saw him just take over the game in Game 5 against the Knicks in Round 1 and really step up when Embiid was injured and not playing well late in the games. And he can, I think, play well without Embiid. They didn't really win too much when Embiid was hurt. And Maxey was the number 1, but he's still just 23 years old. I just feel like I put Paulo ahead of him. And they have Halliburton 5. All right, so this is obviously after the playoff run Halliburton had. I mean, let me give my respect to Halliburton. He beat my Knicks for sure in 7 games. Someone that stepped up when people were calling him a home game merchant. He stepped up in MSG. He's an elite shooter. I know the splits were weird after the injury. He's one of the best passers in this game. He can rebound. He can dribble really well. He plays so well in this Rick Carlisle system. He can play super fast. He was bad defensively this year, but I still think that he has fine defensive potential because I liked his defense coming out of Iowa State, and I thought he was fine defensively in Sacramento. I don't think I would do this, though. I still think Paulo should be higher. But I know Halliburton's better than Paulo right now, and Halliburton was just on an all-NBA team. I just think Paulo should be at 5. I do. Just a long term. Like, Paulo, if he figures out his game, he could be LeBron James. I'm not saying he's as good as LeBron James, but somebody of his size, his strength, his ball handling ability, his quickness and speed, if he has an outside shot and what he is defensively, Paulo's potential is as good as anybody we have talked about so far, and he's just as good. He's better than J-Dub right now. You can make an argument he's better than Chet. I would say Maxey and Halliburton are better than Paulo right now for sure, but long term, I don't know. And then this is where I lose my mind. Luka at 4. Oh, man, I disagree with this. So I guess Shea's at 3, and then there's an Ant and Wemby thing. Oh, man. When has Shea ever been better than Luka? And you could say this year, but not, like, they're giving a lot of props to Halliburton in the playoffs. Luka, I mean, this came out before the Western Conference Finals, but Luka beat Shea. This came out when they beat Shea and the Thunder, so I disagree with this, man. I disagree. Luka has 5 All-NBA first teams at 25 years old. He's led the Dallas Mavericks to 2 Western Conference Finals as a number 1 option. Like I said, this came out before they were up 3-0, and they have a chance at, I'm recording this when they're up 3-0, and there's a chance they go to the finals. But wow, man, disagree with this. Shea's going to be at 3. I mean, I think that should be the top 4. I don't know if we have to pump the brakes on the Ant hype, just because Shea, I feel like, is someone that doesn't even need a screen, a pick and roller. He's got one of the best mid-range jumpers in this league. He's super efficient. He's the best perimeter defender out of Luka and Ant, who's at number 2. Man, I disagree with this. I know the hype, they love Anthony Edwards, but I would go Luka 2. I'd go Shea 3, Ant 4. I know it's easy to dunk on Ant, but Ant's 22, Shai's 25. So 3 more years of Ant. Then I could see the reasoning for Ant above Shai, but I can't put Ant above Luka. I can't. And Luka's been banged up in these playoffs. Man, okay, so we're going to go to the defensive conversations. I know, but I feel like Luka makes everybody around him better. I disagree. I think I would also put Luka at 1. I love Wemby. Wemby's at 1, and he's 20 years old, so the sky's the limit. But I still think Luka, man, can Wemby be healthy enough? There's questions. I mean, he was healthy this year, but there's questions with his size and frame that he could be a top guy. There's questions, for sure. But a lot of their criteria and their points going into this, I'm fine with Wemby 1. I just think Luka should be 2. You could put Ant at 3, Shai at 4. But that's like a tier of its own. Then I think there's a drop off at 5, but I think 5 should be Paulo. So yeah, let me know what you guys think here on YouTube if you're watching this, and I appreciate it if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hopefully I described this enough in a way where you're able to follow along for sure. So Wemby at 1, Ant at 2, Shai 3, Luka 4, Halliburton 5, Maxey 6, Chet 7, J-Dub 8. They have Paulo at 9, Zion tied for 10. I'm just going to go through all this. Ja tied at 10. Şengün at 12. Scotty at 13. Cade at 14. And then they had Trey at 15 tied with Mobley. 17 would be Brandon Miller. 18 Franz. 19 Triple J. 20 Lamelo. 21 is going to be Jalen Johnson. 22 is going to be Jalen Green. 23 Desmond Bane. 24 Darius Garland, and 25 was Jabari Smith. They did also have like a who's got next section that I wanted to go over. I saw like Cooper Flagg's name. So yeah, they had Cooper Flagg next up, and that is the only name that's mentioned there. Okay, I just wanted to talk about that. So yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in to this episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast, and I will catch you guys in the next one.